Hello, it's Phil again, and in this episode of Passions, my guest is Dawn Farrow. And Dawn has successfully worked with pioneering producers and promoters around the whole globe in areas such as cinema, sports, festivals, immersive experiences, children's theatre, circuses, dining events, West End plays and musicals and arenas. Gosh, you mention it, she's done it. She was founder and CEO of the full-service marketing agency Boom Live, where she created an enviable reputation in one of the most competitive landscapes, planning and delivering high-profile brand building and sales-focused campaigns. So in this interview, Dawn shares with me her experiences, her journey, and the part that passion has played in it. Enjoy. Hello and a very warm welcome to the latest edition of Passions. And today I'm really delighted to be joined by Dawn Farrow. And Dawn has been very, very good in agreeing to be interviewed today for the Passions channel. So a very warm welcome to Passions, Dawn. Tell us about yourself.
Hello and thank you. Well, let me tell you about myself. Having recently closed a very successful marketing agency, I now operate on a freelance basis as a marketing and business consultant. But most recently, my new business, I suppose, has been a new network that I've created. It comes off the back of the situation we find ourselves in from a COVID perspective. It's called Dogs and Coffee Network, and it's a job alert and motivational network to help people specifically who work in entertainment and live experiences, which is my experience lies.
Fantastic. So now you started off, and I remember you told me you started off, didn't you, as a dancer? So was that your first passion, would you say, dancing? And did you envisage that you'd be doing it for the rest of your life, or was it just a hobby?
Oh, great question. So growing up, I had two great obsessions. One was dancing and the other was horse riding. And the first job I thought I might go and do was to join the circus and be a ballerina on the top of a horse, the ones that go round the arena. I really fancied that as a job. And I saw someone do it and I thought I could probably do that. So fast forward, and thankfully my parents pushed me more into my dancing. So, but I didn't think it was ever really a career. And it was only into my late teens and into my, when I was sort of 17, 18, that I realized I absolutely had to be not necessarily a dancer, but I thought that was the only career possible in the industry. I came from a rural background. Nobody in my family is artistic. My family were as artistic as my dad, who's a farmer, very kindly used to wind the curtain at dance shows. That's about as artistic as our family got. And so my parents really didn't know what to do with me apart from to allow me to have this passion for performing. And we thought the only career was dancing. So I auditioned and was sent to London with my mother saying, I'm really fine about you being a dancer and good luck. However, please could you do a business degree? And I said, I'm not so sure. And she said, I think you should. I think you should. And I did. So I ended up after 3 years being the only dancer with a business degree.
So was she right with hindsight?
Yes. I mean, glorious. Absolutely correct, because, I probably wasn't ever good enough to be a professional dancer. And and in a sense that kills me to admit it, My competitive bones don't really, even now as in my 40s, don't want to admit that, but it's extraordinarily hard to be a dancer, to be a professional dancer, and there are very, very few jobs, and we're seeing that now, in a scenario where so many jobs have been lost and are being lost. Actually, the dancers who still have work are those that work for big ballet companies, for example. So Birmingham Royal Ballet creating some phenomenal work, Royal Opera House, Royal Ballet Company, phenomenal work. Yet, I would never have been in that group. So to have all the knowledge of a performer and a dancer and all the passion for it, but to be the only one with a business degree, undeniably, I had a competitive advantage when I was, going into the industry and looking for work.
That must be a conversation that is going on up and down the country, tens of thousands of times a day, where parents want to be supportive of their children, their youngsters, in terms of follow your dreams, but at the same time, maybe being more experienced in the world and being more practical in the world and wanting them not to put all their eggs in one basket. And I always think it must be quite tricky to be supportive, but at the same time being a voice of caution.
Yeah, I think you raise an extraordinarily good point. Maybe I was looking in my relationship with my family that I was, I'm not a great listener in many ways, but I do see logic, and so I understood the need. But in my darkest hours, sat in a bedroom on my own studying, the product life cycle, just horrendous.
Well, yeah, especially somebody who's obviously artistic and creative as you are. Yeah.
But that said, it doesn't actually take a really logical person to know that even whether you want to be an actor, especially if you want to be a professional dancer, your life cycle is limited anyway. So even if you get into one of the top ballet companies in the company, or you get on stage in a phenomenal musical, in the West End, your life cycle is still limited. And consequently, you always need a backup. Everyone should have a backup. And your backup might be retraining at 25, or it could be training alongside the training you were doing. And there's phenomenal examples, supermodels like Lily Cole, who has an extraordinarily brilliant brain and who's studied and has got amazing grades, behind also being one of the most successful models in the country. Like it's doable. And how smart she just, women like that become the smarter, more successful people in the long run, I believe.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So did you actually just suddenly stop dancing, or was it a gradual move away from dancing into the world of business and commerce?
Yeah, it was an emotional one, actually. And I suppose that comes from being passionate about what I was doing. So I ended up working in a dance studio, which suited me fine because I was around dancers all of the time, and it was ran by a dancer and owned. She was a choreographer, performer, worked for Merce, was trained by Merce Cunningham. It was like a holy grail for me at the time.
Yeah.
And but I would try and take class after a day of work, and I saw that my brain couldn't switch. And I knew that, and I knew I wasn't very good. I wasn't as good as I used to be. And that was mere months after finishing my professional training. And then I had a boyfriend at the time said, you realize at some point you'll have to stop dancing. You'll have to make a choice. And that clarity was like literally like a dagger in my heart, and it could make me cry now. I just thought, you don't get it. Like, you can't make me choose. There's just no way I can ever. No, that's not a choice to be made. And actually, as you've sort of pinpointed, it was a very natural move. So I actually never missed my dancing, my professional training, because it evolved. I just evolved in and I found new things, and interestingly, I picked up new. I realized what I loved about dancing was training and learning, and so I started learning new styles of dancing.
That's right. And then all of a sudden, you realize there was another passion in your life, which was dogs. And there started another journey. So tell me about your dog's journey then, Dawn.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, two things in life I'm really obsessed, stroke passionate about: performing and the stage, and dogs. And I've been obsessed with them, animals particularly, but dogs more specifically, I suppose. I mean, literally since the age of 4 or 5. And so I then, in my theatre career, started worrying that I might lose my passion. So I had friends who were older than me. They were the ripe, I remember it very clearly, they were the ripe old age of 30.
Oh, goodness me.
No, mortified now. And they were saying, oh, just hate this. I can't believe I have to go tonight. And I thought, I don't ever want to feel like that about being gifted a free ticket for the theatre. I always want to enjoy it. So maybe I could be heading that off. So I went to work for the Kennel Club, and I did the marketing for Crofts. And it was a phenomenal wake up to the fact that I absolutely loved the dogs, but the work was nothing about the dogs. And what I realized that my passion did not relate to the role, or in this example, actually the organization, because it was the people in entertainment that I loved. The people and our shared passion and our shared way of doing business, which is a really upsy daisy way of doing business in many ways. It was different. And so I very quickly thought, oh my goodness, well, I don't want to not be passionate about dogs anymore. So I left. I thought that scares me too much, that I might fall out of love with dogs. And I jumped straight back into live entertainment.
That shows a lot of that to me shows quite a lot of self-awareness, actually, that you recognized it and then made the change rather than just hanging on for years in the hope that it would come back.
Yeah, I'm a great believer in moving into change and making difficult decisions. And I'm lucky. I don't tend to. Actually, I'm not lucky. I just have I have an ability to move into a difficult situation and make really difficult decisions and feel comfortable knowing that that was the right thing. So I think maybe that's what you see there.
Yeah, that's right. That makes sense. So obviously you had the dancing, you dabbled with the dogs, as it were, and you then ended up owning your own agency, your own, what seems to be quite mainstream, because I check you out, of course, as one has to, and you're really mainstream agency operating at real senior levels or high levels within the West End and entertainment. Was that just a gradual accident, or did you just have this vision and this goal that you wanted to develop this agency to this level and this size?
Yeah, so I literally, for years, I can only describe it as a feeling in my tummy. I'd always dreamt of having a business. And in fact, was in the top year of my primary school, we had to draw a picture and write about what we'd be doing in the future. And I said I'd have my own business. It would be a kennels, and there was something around dancing there. And I can vividly remember, but it was this idea of having my own business. And I held that all the way through my career. And again, I'm not sure where that came from, because it's not, although my dad has his own business, in as much as he's a farmer. It was, you know, that's more self-employed, I guess. No, you know, I had nothing to draw from in terms of entrepreneurs in my family, and certainly nobody in my family had ever set up a life in London. But so I just knew I had to do it. And the moment that I handed in my notice to my phenomenal boss, actually, it was like, I can only describe it as jumping off a cliff, and I can see myself jumping, and that was the scariest bit. That conversation with him was the scariest bit. And I came away from that meeting and I knew I was in free fall. I could see, so visually I was like, yep, okay, well, this is it. You've said it now. So you've just got to get on with it. And the business really was about saying, I believe that people want experiences. So I was thinking of my childhood and the TV that I loved. And when we went to Hull New Theatre, we just saw entertainment. We didn't know what was a musical, what was a play, we didn't have that education. and you know, and that was coming to London and having all these genres of experiences. I was like, well, you just go to the theatre and you see what's on. You know,
too much choice.
Yeah, but you know, I grew up with Me and My Girl and Joe Pasquale at Hull New Theatre. I was like, this is top of the tree stuff for me. And of course, you know, the business had evolved, and what we were able to, what my clients then brought to me to get me to create campaigns for and sell was amazing, like Secret Cinema and the Lunar Cinema and immersive experience. And, you know, that really, really floated my boat, but I could only sell them. You know, I am a marketeer, but let's be honest, I'm there to sell, because I was passionate about it. And because on opening night, I always wanted to be there. And when you want to be there and you want to do the best for your clients, you're kind of going to be passionate about it.
Yeah. And were you or have you been experimenting with new ways to capture attention and, you know, all these things that we talk about in the marketing arena, which is getting the attention? I talk it a lot in my business about in digital media, is get the attention, get the engagement. Have you been somebody who's been involved in experimenting with the different ways to influence people, and the psychology, of course, which I guess has become significantly even more relevant as time's gone on? So would you say you have been and are experimental in those terms with your clients?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's reflective of the client list I up with, that you know, I would always joke with my team that, you know, we never get the easy gig. So, you know, a nice traditional musical coming into the West End, we're never going to get that phone call. Well, you know, we always got the, you know, it would always start with, I've got a project, it's going to be really hard to sell, it's really different, and I'm like, yeah, it's for us, come on, bring it on. Because, you know, because we were great at finding solutions. And
did you love the creative process of that? Were you in your element with you and the team when you were, I guess, on an assumption, you know, in a room with a flip chart, say, we've got to try and sell this, we've got to try and get the attention and of all these people that got a million and billion other things hitting them from every direction of the internet and Netflix and beyond? Was that something that you really, really enjoyed and relished, was coming up with the ideas that might be different enough?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I'm not the right person when it comes to detail. So, you know, my job was to create an amazing team behind me that, you know, did the detail, that knew the minutiae of running, you know, everything behind the scenes on Facebook. So my job absolutely was creatively thinking about who is going to buy this ticket, who wants to be part of this experience, who are going to be the early adopters. And, you know, it's interesting even now that you can only base that stuff on, you know, experience and some data, but every time a new genre is invented, you know, a client will say, well, it's a little bit Secret Cinema and it's a little bit this and it's a little, you know, and you start to go, oh, okay, well, I'll, you know, take and create a customer profile from there. And then it's test and learn, which is petrifying, but brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, funnily enough, I do actually have conversations with my customers and my clients. And one of the things I usually say at the start, especially with smaller businesses, is unfortunately, I've run out of magic pixie dust. Because there is sometimes expectation, isn't there, that you'll go in there with your marketing bag of tricks or your sales bag of tricks and do this, and do this, and you'll be a multimillionaire a week on Tuesday. Especially in an age now where everybody's, instant gratification is the only game in town. Is that something you've experienced as well in what you're doing?
Yeah, and truth be told, it's what starts to kill the passion, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that probably, the idea of losing the passion for what you do, is one of the very key reasons that ultimately, after nearly 10 years, I, rather petrifyingly decided to close my business. That was, I have to say, running, making a lot of money that I walked away from.
Was it just not enough anymore then, do you think? Did you need more in life? Did you need more stimulation, more challenge, all of
Yeah,
the above? Or had you proved it? Had you got to a point where you kind of proved that you could do it?
I think maybe I always wondered if I could. Everybody said I couldn't. I started it from the ground up, with a little bit of money I had. I never had investors. I never had family money. Like I did it all on my own. So absolutely, if you're thinking of a way to start a business and make it as hard as possible for yourself, I did it. I absolutely did it. And I achieved a lot. And then I started running a business, and that's all I was doing. And sometimes I'd go see great shows, but not always, because I'd be absolutely knackered, and I wasn't as passionate about running a business as I was about starting a business, as I was about growing a business, as I was about finding new ways of marketing.
That is the classic entrepreneur, isn't it? That you start it, you get it going, and then you start to get a little bit bored in some cases. It's kind of, you've done that now. You want to start something new and different that taps into the creativity. I suppose you get to a point where when it becomes established, it's more of a machine to a point. Is it fair to say? Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone said to me, "Why don't you just sell it?" And I thought, because that would still rely on me, and I am ready to do something else. I want to keep learning. I want to keep finding, my own passion in life for doing what I'm doing. So, so I this is early in the year, prior to us even having heard about this thing called COVID, or what it would quite do to the world and our industry. I sadly made everybody redundant. I gave in my lease to my office, and cried a lot.
Yeah, well, it was your baby, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, there was an element of, everybody knew Dawn at Boom. Boom was Dawn. That was, so it was really quite novel having my name back, and just, Dawn is Dawn.
And was that something that came along gradually over time, that feeling and that decision? Was it like almost like, thinking when you're leaving a job, I'll think about leaving my job in the next few months? Or was it a case of you woke up one morning and thought, no, time for a change?
Well, I think I tended to always in January have quite a reflective period. I just think that's my cycle as a business owner and someone that thinks a lot about how to grow her business. And so I remember thinking the January before about, okay, what's my plans for this year? And so I knew in my head that the thought process was coming in January. But interestingly, what I realized was that the year ahead looked very much like the year prior. And the penny that dropped was that I didn't think that was interesting enough for me.
Yeah, I so get that. I so get that. And I know a number of people who also have that same thought process where it's like, is this it almost?
Yeah. And not,
Yeah.
and not to be discouraging of that year. I mean, of course, the year has actually been so different, but it would have been a really good year. Like I said, some amazing clients, but it just wasn't. I just knew it wasn't what I wanted to do.
So obviously, then this thing comes from absolutely nowhere, called COVID-19. That I don't think any of the very best science fiction writers could have ever come up with something quite like this. And I think more than anything else, I think what's really got us all is just the sheer speed in which this came. It was almost like an asteroid that we'd missed came flying in and got under the radar, and we missed it and hit the Earth. So how have you coped with that on a number of levels, really? How have you coped? I'm thinking straight away, what strikes me is you are so involved in the whole entertainment industry. I must know so many people in the industry, a number of which have been really, really impacted by this on a massive scale. So on that basis, how are you managing to cope with that despondency and that feeling of upset all around? Or is that just an assumption I've made that's not the case?
No. I manage it. Classic entrepreneur. I find solutions.
Yeah.
I literally sat down and I thought, what can I do? What can I do? What is my? I literally thought, what is my role in this? Because I didn't have a business to worry about. I didn't have an office rent to pay. I didn't have people to have to manage. But I knew that there was a responsibility as someone with senior experience, and that the only way of taking responsibility was I was never going to be asked, because there was no one to ask. And I also remember early on in my career, I got made redundant, and it's awful being made redundant in any industry, and you by default take it extraordinarily personally, right? I don't care how strong you are. The first feeling is, forget COVID. Why me? I'm not good enough, especially when people are having to re-interview for jobs. There's only two, and there's now only 2 roles, and there used to be 5. You feel like you've lost, and you feel like you're not good enough. So the ammunition that gets added into that when you work in live entertainment is the bit that you are also grieving a passion. You're grieving no longer being part of a community that you thought you were part of. And that really stuck with me. And I thought about all these brilliant people at any stage in their career who had been made redundant and no longer had anyone to go to be inspired by, to give top tips, to give motivation, to say, hey, have you seen this job? And I had 2 or 3 people when I was made redundant that really looked out for me. But in a COVID era where it's every man for themselves, even the really kind people are still having to think, yeah, but I need to make sure I've got a job as well. So I created Dogs and Coffee, and I thought, and the reason it's called Dogs and Coffee is because they're 2 of my motivations. So literally, if I haven't had coffee and hung out with my 2 dogs between 6:30 and 7, it's not going to be a good day.
It's a bad day.
It's a bad day. Why would you start a day without dogs or coffee? Like, ridiculous.
I do think you missed a trick, though, because when you were talking earlier, I thought surely a dancing dog act would have been your perfect scenario, wouldn't it? When you're entertaining on stage. You should have. What's that? What was that dog called on BGT?
Yeah, I know. Heel work. They call it heel work to music. I'm absolutely obsessed. Though the joy of people that are great at heel work to music is they've got far more concentration than I would ever have. So thankfully, those people who are professional at it, you're safe. We're not coming near you.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure they'll be pleased about that. Okay, so tell me more about Dogs and Coffee, because I know this is something I guess has become a new passion for you.
it very much fits what we were talking about earlier. It very clearly meets the making a difference again. So talk to me about what it is. Are you going to be doing, is it online driven? Will it, what's the story around it?
Yeah, so at the moment, it's a weekly newsletter that you access through the website dogsandcoffee.co.uk. It's daily Instagram feed. We also do interviews on IGTV, interviewing coaches and people who help with development and skilling people up. And actually next Friday, we're doing our first conference as well, called the Career Hustle. And it's all free. So none of this, I'm not being paid for this. There's no magic. Well, apart from me personally paying people to help me, but the conference, everybody's giving their time. The content that I put out on a regular basis is there's an amazing woman, Mimi, who used to work with me at Boom, who is helping me. So, I find money to pay her, but this is not a commercial generating business. It's different for me in that sense. It's about facilitation and helping people when they most need it. And, we know I get some beautiful messages from people when I think I'm mainly talking to myself. Some people then send me this beautiful DM and I think, if I've helped someone today, wow. And that's a new feeling for me, because that's, that's not how I've operated previously in my business life.
Yeah, no, there's an awful lot of gratification from that. I know I do a lot of, in my business, I do a lot of training and development and coaching, like Mandy Creswell Phillips does, which I know you know, Mandy. And yeah, definitely there's something. Now and again, you'll get an email or a message back saying, you probably don't remember, but a year ago you helped me with this, or a year ago you did this. And I just wanted to let you know, on the back of that conversation, I jacked in my job, I started a business, and it's been the best thing I ever did. And I just wanted you to know that you were my inspiration. There's nothing quite like that feeling when you get that.
And I have to say, because I am not a coach. It's not where my skill set lies. And most people will tell you how impatient and I'm way too blunt. And mainly I have an opinion about everything, which is dreadful for coaching. But there's something about Dogs and Coffee the sentiment lands quite positively, and that I'm not, I'm simply trying to give people information to allow them to take it or leave it, actually. And, we find it, we post a lot of jobs. There is work out there. What the issue we see is that, one job is seeing over 1,000 applicants, whereas, even a year ago, maybe 200 at a push. And of those 200, you just, the first 50 that you get that arrive 10 minutes after you've posted the advert are no good anyway.
Yeah. Oh, it just sounds absolutely awesome. So what date is that?
So the conference is next Friday, the 6th. And tomorrow we're doing a very small event with this amazing man called Simon Shepherd. He's running Foundations for Success, which is all about, what I would call what to do to create marginal gains. So he's from a sports background, which I think is phenomenally interesting. And he's going to talk to us about nutrition and sleep and, just your working day pattern, and how that in itself can be a foundation before you start talking about values, before you start thinking about what roles might be, right for you. Are you as an individual looking after yourself? Which I just think so obvious, isn't it? We've got to look after ourselves before we go on the job hunt, but stress and anxiety perhaps, don't always allow us to make that consideration.
So do you think that all this that you're doing now, do you think this is becoming a new passion, and do you see it as an ongoing thing that you'll develop into new and different arenas, or do you think it's a thing of its time, just to kind of provide support that's desperately needed right now? Or have you not got that far yet thinking about it?
I don't know. I'm well positioned. I have work outside of Dogs and Coffee. So Dogs and Coffee can absolutely be the thing that is put out there to help and support. And it's not designed to be a commercial beast in any way. And maybe that's why I'm loving it, having had a business for so long, that there's just no pressure. And all of it is
I was going to say
tested.
no pressure. That's the words that sprung to mind when you said it. No pressure.
Yeah. And, you know,
Yeah.
and somebody said to me the other day, you know, a friend said, "God, I've seen you be more open about you as a person than I've ever seen you be in your business life." And I said, well, because I can be, you know, I absolutely can be, because I'm, you know, the channels don't rely on me having to be another version of myself. They rely on me just saying, this is how it is today, guys. How's your life going? You know, my dog vomited on the floor in a shop today. You're probably doing better than me. Like, it's all fine.
Yeah, and of course it's all new experiences and such like as well. Okay, well, we've kind of run out of time. I always say this to guests. It's a strange thing, but it's absolutely true. Is most of the time I always feel I could carry on talking for a lot longer. But I just thought I'd, you know, to put you on the spot a little bit, but just to say, if there's one tip that you could give to people that would inspire them or help them to perhaps get through some of the challenges that are going on. They may be in the entertainment world, they may be not be in the entertainment world, but I think there's a lot of challenges out there, no doubt about that. Is there any kind of one tip that you could give to people that you think might just help them on this journey over the next 12 to 18 months?
I mean, so many, but I think one that maybe a couple I believe in, actually. One of the reasons I set up my business is the sentiment of, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? And
Yes.
you know, I never, I say, I had no history to suggest that I should ever set up my own business, never mind a competing marketing agency in one of the most competitive businesses in the world, never mind as a female business owner who had only just turned 30. Everything was against me, and I did it nonetheless, and created a multi-million pound business. So you can do it. I was a trained dancer from near Grimsby. You've got this, guys. And other thing I would say is, you know, once you're on, just don't quit. Just absolutely do not quit, and do not let other people suggest that you should quit, because that's, you know, that can be a dangerous thing, that you allow other people to dictate when you're ready to finish or move on, or, you know, don't.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true, and you do see this quite a lot, and it's a conversation I often have in this world of instant gratification. It is a quite, you know, I think it's something like I get involved a fair bit with digital media, and I'm trying to help people to get YouTube channels set up and all that kind of thing. And there's some statistic which says something like 77% of YouTube channels have got like 3 videos on them or something, and the same with podcasts. And it's very often the fact that if people don't get that instant gratification of 5,000 people watched their video or 3,000 people listened to their podcast, they get disillusioned and stop. And being a Mancunian myself, I would argue there's probably a bit of northern grit going on there, Dawn, actually.
Probably, but especially, as I say, my dad's a farmer, and my mum comes from a, you know, farming, hardworking background. I think, yeah, I mean, work ethic. You know, I am admittedly a workaholic. Weirdly, well, not weirdly, it's definitely stood me in good stead. Doesn't always mean I'm the healthiest in being kind to myself, but yeah, you might just be right there, actually.
Well, that's absolutely wonderful. Thanks ever so much for joining me today, and all the very, very best with what you're doing. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure it'll make a lot of difference to a lot of people. And just maybe you might be getting a few of those texts and phone calls and emails in the future saying, you know, I came to that online, I had that online experience at the conference, or I joined Dogs and Coffee, and as a result, it made a big difference to me and helped me move forward in what are very, very difficult times. So I'm very, very appreciative of your time, because I know that time is precious for us all. And thank you very much today for joining me on Passions and being so candid about some of your experiences that you've been through.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you.